It started.
Okay. Om Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedamscha Prahinoti Tasmai Tamhadevam Atmabuddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarvalokanam, Bhishaje Bhavaroginam, Nidhaye Sarvavidyanam, Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Right. So we were on 266 last class. Was that right? I think we stopped in that Buddhau Guhayam. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Punarna tasyanga guha pravesha. That was the last shloka. So we'll now go to 267. But before we move on to the shlokas, are there any questions for discussion? Anybody comes up with any questions? No one? Okay. Right. So I will switch my video off. That will save some bandwidth. Okay. Are you all able to see the shlokas?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So 267. Jnate vastunyapi balavati vasananadiresha karta bhoktapyahamiti dridha yasya samsara hetuhu pratyagdrishtyatmani nivasata sapaneya prayatnat muktim prahuhu tadiha munayo vasanatanavam yat. Jnate vastunyapi balavati vasananadiresha karta bhoktapyahamiti dridha yasya samsara hetuhu pratyagdrishtyatmani nivasata sapaneya prayatnat muktim prahuhu tadiha munayo vasanatanavam yat. See, generally when I teach either Vivek Chudamani or Bhagavad Gita or any other such shlokas, when I read out the shloka, I encourage the participants to also chant. So would you all be interested in doing that? So I will read and then you can repeat after me. Is that something you're comfortable with?
Yes.
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 Okay, then let's do it from this shloka. Jnate vastuni
Jnate vastunyapi
api balavati
Api balavati
vasana
vasana
anadiresha
anadiresha
karta bhokta
karta bhokta
api aham iti
api
api aham iti
dridha yasya
dridhayasya
samsara hetuhu
samsara
hetuhu
pratyagdrishtya
pratyagdrishtya
atmani nivasata
atmani
nivasata
sapaneya
prayatnat
prayatnat
muktim prahuhu
Muktim prahuhu
tadiha munayo
tadiha
tadiha munayo
munayo
vasana tanavam yat.
vasana
vasana
tanam
tanavam
yat.
yat.
Okay. So this shloka gives a certain view on how to do the nididhyasanam. Until that 263 shloka, where we saw, there was one fourth line which was always repeating. That was Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani. We saw up to, from 254 until 263, the last line was common, Brahma Tattvamasi Bhavayatmani. So there the approach to Nididhyasanam was to focus the mind on the characteristics or nature of Brahman. So Brahman was described from different angles, and then you have, the sadhaka is encouraged to think of Brahman in several different ways. That was the approach until those 10 shlokas. From this section, the Acharya gives a slightly different approach. The entire objective of Nididhyasanam is to wean the individual away from the habitual tendencies that have been developed over so many past janmas and reinforced in the current janma also. So the old vasanas or tendencies or samskaras about our false identification with the body, mind and all that have to be removed deliberately. So the removal of the vasana is being now focused as an approach to nididhyasana. Okay, so what is this vasana first of all? So there is a beautiful shloka to define what is vasana. I'll read out that shloka. You don't have to repeat after me, but it is just for your general knowledge that there is some such shloka which is defined. So vasana dridha bhavanaya tyakta purva para vicharanam yadadanam padarthasya vasana sa prakirtita. So this is the definition for what is vasana. Dridha bhavanaya tyakta purva apara vicharanam yadadanam padarthasya vasana sa prakirtita. So here vasana is defined in the following way. There is a tendency which is very strong, a very strong tendency, that is dridha bhavana, and that strong tendency is so strong, it is like your automatic programming. It's like, in a computer, how do you program a computer? You say, okay, for this response, for this kind of stimulus or input, this must be the response or output. So you define a series of inputs and a series of corresponding outputs. Like that, our mind is also programmed over so many janmas for a particular situation, for a particular input or event. We react in a certain way, and that reaction is so automatic that the mind does not reflect on, number one, what were the past instances when a similar reaction was given and what were the consequences. That is ignored or forgotten. And what could be the future consequence now if I did this, that is also not considered or taken into account. So it's almost like an automatic response. That is purva tyakta purva para vicharanam. That is what it means. So purva vicharanam means the consequences of our past similar reaction. Apara means what can happen now in this instance. That consideration is also left or abandoned. Means abandoned. Then yad adanam padarthasya. With these two blind spots, so to say, we go for a particular aspect or response or person or object. So we take a certain action that is called adanam, padarthasya adanam. That kind of a tendency is called vasana. So that is the vasana definition. Now coming back to the Vivek Chodamani sloka, here if you see the fourth line, even the first line has that vasana anadihi esha. So this vasana that we are talking about is anadi, it is beginningless. It's been there for a long time. It didn't start in this janma. It has been there even before our present janma, because from janma to janma the mind does not change, only the body changes. The mind, the intellect, the prana, the sukshma shariram travels from one body to another. That is what we call birth and death. The mind is eternal in that sense. Okay, so that vasana is anadi, it is beginningless. So it is balavati, it is very strong, it is very dominant. So jnate vastuni api means, even though this sadhaka has learnt about Brahman through Shravanam and Mananam, so this person has now understood that his true nature is consciousness, Chaitanyam. He is not the body, he is not the mind. All that he has learnt at an intellectual level. But because of this vasana being so strong, he still has that identification that I am a karta, I am a bhokta. Karta means one who performs actions, and bhokta is one who enjoys or experiences or suffers the consequences of the action. So karma has two aspects. When you perform karma, you are a karta, and when the karma phalam comes to you, you are a bhokta. And this is a cycle. So what happens? This is the cause of suffering. Samsara hetuhu. The word samsara hetuhu means this identification that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, that is the cause of all of our suffering. And dridha, so that dridha and balavati are to be connected. Dridha means very firm, it is not easy to shake it. Balavati means it's very strong, very powerful. Okay, so this is the effect of the vasana, on us. On us means on our body and mind, and that we call that as samsara. Samsara is basically suffering. Then what happens? Pratyak drishtya atmani nivasata. So drishti, the word drishti normally is a view, but here the word drishti is not translated as view. It is a certain approach to everything, every transaction that we get into. Pratyak means inward focused. Pratyak means inward. So pratyak drishtya means you do introspection. And what is introspection? Atmani. Atmani means within one's true nature. So by recollecting the lessons learned in the Shravanam and Mananam phases, that I am actually the Chaitanyam, the consciousness. That consciousness cannot perform any action. So I am really speaking not an actor, and all the experiences that I have are not for me, but for my body, mind, and I am merely a witness of all those experiences. So this is the pratyak drishti that one has to develop. Okay, and prayatnat, that's a very long process. Prayatna means effort. One has to put in a lot of effort, invest a lot of effort. Sa apaneya. Sa here refers to that vasana. And apaneya means it can be reduced or it can diminish. It can be eventually reduced to a very great extent. Apaneya, sa apaneya. It can be reduced. That vasana can be reduced. Then muktim prahuhu. So if one is successful in that effort, then the person enjoys a great level of peace, security, and happiness. And that state is called mukti. That is freedom. That is the mukti that we talk about. That is Jivan Mukti. Tadiha Munayo. Munayaha here refers to the wise people. So the wise people call this as mukti or freedom or liberty. And vasana tanavam yat. And this is basically the process of reducing or weakening our vasanas. So that is the shloka. It's a very important shloka because the next several shlokas are going to be developed based on this particular shloka's declaration. So in Sanskrit, this is called a pratignya shloka. Pratignya means it's a declaration. So this is a major announcement that the Acharya is doing in this shloka, which will then be elaborated in the next 15, 20, 30, whatever shlokas. That is 267. Okay. Any questions? Any doubts? Comments? Yes, please.
So once a person is Jivan Mukta,
Yeah.
so once this realization happens, what is there for the person to be done or left to do in this life?
Okay. So we talk about non-binding desires and dharmic desires. Okay. So a jnani will also have a lot of desires. Even Bhagavan has a lot of desires. Okay. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is a shloka that says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So there in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, whenever in this world the dharma weakens and adharma becomes strong, I come down in avatara form to restore the dharmic balance. So that is actually Bhagavan Krishna expressing a desire, basically. Without a desire, action cannot happen. So even Bhagavan has desires. And in the Upanishad, there are a lot of mantras which say, so kamayata, bahusyam srijayeti. Kamayata means the Lord desired. So even Bhagavan has desires. So Jnani also can have desires. So as long as the desires are non-binding and dharmic, you can pursue any desire. So you can do anything that can benefit the society, that can benefit the world at large. And the world is open. See, the difference between a jnani performing those actions and an ajnani performing similar action is, in the case of an ajnani, the ajnani performs an action so that he can achieve fulfillment or purnatvam through those actions. So for the ajnani, the karma is a means to an end. Whereas in the case of a jnani, the jnani doesn't perform the action for acquiring purnatvam. He has already realized he is purna. So he is performing the action out of purnatvam. So he is performing the action for the sake of the action itself, not for any benefit that will come from the action to him. That's the difference.
Then does it mean that even after realization, we are expected or supposed to, or we can go about our normal life with all our regular duties
Yes.
and also, let's say, contributing to society?
Exactly. See, according to the Shastras, a grihastha is the one who has right to performing karmas. And in the Vedic tradition, karma does not mean, going to an office, taking up a job, earning a salary. That's not karma in the Vedic sense. In the Vedic sense, all karmas refer to Vedic karmas. Okay. And of course, varnashrama karmas. So let's say there is a kshatriya or a vaishya. They have their karmas. They may not have a lot of Vedic karmas. They may have some Vedic karmas, but a vaishya will have his business. Vaishyas are basically in the their duty is to create wealth and share with the society. The Kshatriya's karma is to protect the society from aggression. So
Right.
a Kshatriya can become a jnani, a Vaishya can also become a jnani. And after becoming a jnani, there are two options. Either you continue in your grihastha ashrama and perform your duties, but do it in such a way that you are not doing it for achieving fulfillment of some form, but as a service to society. Or at the point of becoming a jnani, the grihastha can leave the grihastha ashrama and take sannyasa and leave for the forest or leave the society. So there are two options available. That's why in those days we had the varnashrama, order defined. So a brahmachari basically is a student. He learns the shastras. Then after brahmacharya ashramam, after completion of studies, he marries and becomes a grihastha. Or at the end of brahmacharya ashramam, he can choose to become a sannyasi if he has enough vairagyam and vivekam. And after, once he enters grihastha ashramam, he spends several years or several decades in grihastha ashrama and then raises a family, supports the family and does all that. And at a particular point, maybe when he's 40, 50, 60, whatever, he then becomes a vanaprastha, which means he slowly withdraws. It's a semi-retirement where he gives up most of his regular duties and takes up spiritual activities. That is vanaprastha. And finally, he goes to sannyasa ashramam if he is courageous enough. And in sannyasa ashrama, the focus is entirely on gaining Atmavidya. That was the structure given in the society in the Vedic period. But today, we are not following the Vedic way of life at all. So today, when we talk of karma, it basically means earning money and supporting the family and investing money and doing all that. Okay, so you have to understand the word karma in the appropriate context.
Okay.
Okay, right. Your question is over. Any follow-up question?
Yeah. No, nothing. I'm also trying to digest or internalize what you mentioned and
Right.
what was there in the shloka.
Great. Okay. Anyone else, or shall we move on to the next shloka? Okay. I guess nobody has any question. So let me move on to the next shloka. 268. 268. Aham mameti
Aham mameti
yo bhavo
yo
Yo
bhavo
bhavo
dehakshadau
dehakshadau
anatmani
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 adhyasoyam
adhyasoyam
nirastavyo
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 vidusha
vidusha
swatmanishtaya.
swatmanishtaya.
Okay, I'll read the shloka again. You don't have to repeat, just for my satisfaction. Yeah. Aham mameti yo bhavo dehakshadavanatmani adhyasoyam nirastavyo vidusha swatmanishtaya. Okay, so this shloka, from this shloka onwards, you see an elaboration of the ideas given in 267. So all the following shlokas, maybe up to the next 20 shlokas or so, will be a commentary on the 267. So every word or every pair of words will be taken up and analyzed from different angles, and one or the other idea will be given. So aham mama iti yo bhavaha. So that aham is I, mama is mine, mine. Bhavaha means the attitude or the attachment. Okay, so all of us have this attachment that either I am this body, that could be one form of attachment, that is aham bhavaha, or this body is mine, that is mama bhavaha. So almost 99% of humanity has this attachment to the body and also to the mind and other things. And all the relationships, all the other attachments we have is all primarily connected to the body. Whether it is attachment to the parents or children or siblings or spouse, friends, colleagues, job, bank, bank balance, possessions, house, car, all kinds of material possessions, everything is connected to the body. So the attachment to the body is the most strong attachment from which all other attachments emanate. Okay. And deha akshau, aksha adau, dehaksha adau. Deha means the body, aksha means sense organs. Sense organs. Okay. So our sight, eyesight, our ability to hear, you have 5 sense organs for perception and 5 organs for action, what we call Jnanendriya and Karmendriya. So the 10 organs together are referred to as aksha. When we have this word pratyaksha, it means directly in front of your senses. That is pratyaksha. So aksha means sense organs in this context. Okay, anatmani. So all these are anatmas. So all the body, mind, sense organs, they are all anatma. Anatma means non-self. Non-self. That is anatma. Atma is your true self, which is your consciousness. So we make a distinction of atma and anatma. And that's a very important distinction to have. And that clarity about atma and anatma is called viveka. Long back, we talked about a set of qualities called sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, in which viveka, vairagya, shamadhi shatka sampatti and mumukshutvam were broadly defined. So in that class, I explained what is viveka. So those of you who are new, I would recommend that you please refer to the previous sessions. I think today is the 25th session. The previous 24 sessions, especially the first 10 sessions, if you listen, you will get all the fundamentals. So aksha means sense organs, and the sense organs and body are called anatma. So this bhava, aham mama iti bhava, that attitude or attachment is towards all these things which are anatma. And adhyasaha, the word adhyasa means a superimposition. And you can also say adhyasa is a false identity. A false identity. A classic example that we give for adhyasa is the rope snake example. It's a very common example in Advaita Vedanta. We use this rope snake very often. There is a piece of rope lying on the ground. You are walking somewhere in the forest or in your garden or someplace, and it's semi-dark. It is either early morning or sunset, around sunset time, twilight. It's not completely dark. It's not completely bright. It's kind of semi-dark, and you are walking, and then there is a piece of rope on the ground. But because of the semi-darkness, you don't recognize the rope as a rope. Instead, you imagine that to be a snake. That is the rope snake. So the meaning is, really speaking, there is a rope there, but in your mind, you imagine that rope to be a snake. So there is a snake superimposed on the rope. That is the superimposition. That is called adhyasa. So the technical word in Sanskrit for that phenomenon is called adhyasa or superimposition. Another example we give for adhyasa is, imagine there is a crystal, a pure white crystal. It's there on the table somewhere, and next to very close to the crystal, you keep a red flower or a blue flower, whatever color you like. Yeah. Except a white flower, because if it's a white flower, you can't differentiate. So it has to be some dark color. So you can have a blue flower or a red flower next to it. And in that combination, the crystal itself will appear to be red. Even though the crystal by itself is pure transparent white, it doesn't have a color of its own. But because of the proximity of the flower, the crystal appears as red. So the redness of the crystal is a superimposition which is called adhyasa. Okay. We give a third example. Imagine there is a stick or a rod which is exactly straight. There is no bend in that rod, but then you dip it into water. And because of the water, it's called a refractor, it's the phenomenon is called refraction. So when the stick is half inside the water and half outside the water, the stick or the rod appears to have a slight bend. That bend is a superimposition or adhyasa on the rod. So these are the examples that we give for adhyasa. Similarly, the body-mind complex is basically a superimposition on the Atma. So that is why the Acharya uses the word adhyasoyam. So this attachment to the body and mind and sense organs is essentially a superimposition. And nirastavyaha. Nirastavyaha means it has to be dropped. It has to be completely given up. But giving it up completely is not possible. So we try to reduce it to a bare minimum. So nirastavyaha, you can say a compromised meaning, it has to be minimized. Okay. Vidusha. Vidusha means the wise one. Here the wise one refers to someone who has gone through Shravanam and Mananam, which means you have heard the Vedantic teaching, you have heard the Mahavakyams, and you have understood the meaning of the Mahavakyam, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, and all that. And Nirastavyo Vidusha Swatmanishtaya. So that Swatmanishtaya is again reference to the 267 shloka where Pratyak Drishtya Atmani, that word you see there, no? 267, third line, first half. Pratyak Drishtya, that Pratyak Drishtya here is called Swatmanishtaya, Swatmanishtha. So Atmanishtha means by consistently and habitually anchoring in your mind the thought that I am not my body, but I am consciousness, I am Chaitanyam, my true nature is Chaitanyam. That thought running in your mind as a Tampura Shruti, that is called Atmanishtha. And that doesn't come in one day or 1 week. It has to be practiced over a long period. And that is what is called Nididhyasanam. So this entire section of Viveka Chudamani, starting from 253, as I said before, is a rigorous course on how to perform Nididhyasanam. Okay, so that is 267. Any questions? Did I leave out any part that you have not understood? If you need any additional explanation, I am happy to give. So let me know what you want.
No, it's quite clear. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I hope everyone else agrees. If there is any question, please, next 10 seconds, kindly raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll move on. Okay, no hand has gone up. So I'll go to the 269. 269. Nyatva swam
Jnatva
swam
pratyagatmanam
pratyagatmanam
buddhi tadvritti sakshinam.
buddhi
buddhi
sakshinam
akshinam
Sohamityeva
sohamityeva
tadvrittya.
tadvritya
Yeah, tadvrittya. That word is vritya, not vridya. I thought somebody said vridya. It's vritya. Tadvrittya.
satvritya
Anatmani
anatmani
atmamatim jahi.
atmamatim jahi.
atmamatim
So, Jnatva swam pratyagatmanam buddhi tadvritti sakshinam sohamityeva sadvrittya anatmanyatmani, sorry, anatmanyatmamatim jahi. Anatmanyatmamatim jahi. So, I'll go to the second line, last half first. That is the crux of the whole shloka. Anatmani atmamatim jahi. So, jahi means actually to destroy. Jahi means to destroy, but here it is not complete destruction. So, it is some kind of a reduction or diminishing. Yeah. What should you diminish? What should you destroy? Anatmani
Anatmani.
atmamatim. Atmamati is identification. To consider anatma as atma. So that is what we said in the previous two shlokas also, that you mistake your body to be your true self. But your body is not yourself. Your body and your mind, your intellect, all of that is not your real self. Your real self is your chaitanyam, but because of, as you know, in the previous shlokas we said vasana, right? Because of so many purva janma vasana, we mistake our body to be our mind, and so that is anatmani atmamati, identifying the body as ourself. Okay. So how do you reduce that? Sohamityeva sadvritya. So soham. Soham means saha aham. Saha means he. It's a pronoun. Aham means I. That's also a pronoun. So what is he, I? Soham. What is this soham? It is nothing but a reference to the Mahavakyam called Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi. You know, Aham Brahmasmi is a Mahavakyam that comes in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Tattvamasi is a Mahavakyam that comes in Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter. So these are all Mahavakyam. So I am saying Mahavakyam so many times. So I have to give a short introduction, as you know, or short explanation as to what is a Mahavakyam. So Mahavakyam means any statement that occurs in the Upanishads which equates Jivatma and Paramatma, which equates or which proclaims the identity of Jivatma and Paramatma, or which teaches us the identity of Jivatma and Paramatma. So when I say identity, it's not like I'm saying I have two apples in my hand, one apple and the other apple, they are identical because they are both apples. No, it's not like that. Identity means, in the snake rope, rope snake example, let's say you are afraid of the snake which is actually not there, and then a guru comes with a torchlight and tells you, shines the torch on that rope and says, look, the snake that you thought is really the rope. So there, the rope and the snake are one and the same. That is the identity of the rope snake. Similarly, Jivatma, Paramatma identity means there is nothing separately called Jivatma. It is just a mistaken reflection of Paramatma. That is the identity. Okay, that statement is called a Mahavakyam. Okay, so Soham is a reference to the Mahavakyam Aham Brahmasmi, or all such similar Mahavakyams. Sohamityeva. Eva means by that process alone. That Eva is for emphasis. Only. Sohamityeva. Only by understanding the Mahavakyam Soham or Aham Brahmasmi, you can get rid of the false identification with the Anatma. Okay. And the first line is a commentary on the Sohamityeva. Jnatva swam pratyagatmanam buddhi tad vritti sakshinam. Okay, Jnatva means after having known or by knowing. Swam means one's own self. Pratyagatmanam. Pratyag means inside, Atma means self. So you can say swam pratyagatmanam as one word, one compound word. You can say one's own true inner essence or one's own true inner nature. That is Tvam Pratyagatmanam. And what is that Pratyagatma? It is the Buddhi Tad Vritti Sakshi. Sakshi is a witness. Sakshi is a witness. So the Chaitanyam or the consciousness essentially witnesses your mind and the thought modifications that take place in the mind. So buddhi is the mind, and tat vritti means the thought modifications that take place in the mind. Again, you have to go back to the 7th or 8th or 9th session where I explained how we perceive anything at all. I called it the theory of knowledge. There I said that the Chaitanyam or the consciousness is always glued to the mind, and it is always witnessing the mind. And a thought is nothing but the mind taking a particular configuration. So that configuration is called a vritti, and in common parlance we call it the thought. Okay, so the Chaitanyam or the consciousness is always a witness of the mind and the thoughts going on in the mind. That is how you can actually get a hang of what this consciousness is all about. And I have made this recommendation on several occasions in the past. You just have to sit quietly for say 5 minutes or 10 minutes, close your eyes, close all your sense organs. Maybe you go to a quiet corner of the room, quiet corner of the house, choose a time when nobody is making noise, and then try to observe what is happening in your mind. You will see a lot of thoughts rushing in and out. Okay, and just keep watching for the thoughts, and after you have done it for some time, try to flip the whole scenario and try to see who is this person observing those thoughts. For the first few minutes you observe the thoughts, but after that, once you have kind of stabilized in that mode, you have to flip and then try to see who is this entity who is actually watching these thoughts. You cannot objectify that entity, and that is your true nature, Chaitanyam consciousness. If anybody has done this in the past few days or weeks, I would like to know, because I have been keep making this recommendation so often. I would be interested to know if somebody really tried it out. Any of our regulars, maybe Yashaswini ma'am or Kishori ji.
I mean, I must say that the thoughts rush so profusely that one is, I've tried that. The simply thing is that when one prays, even during prayers, the thoughts keep on coming in your mind.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but you have to sit for meditation with the deliberate intention of doing this. There is nothing wrong if your thoughts rush through the mind, because it is the nature of the mind to entertain thoughts.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what I want you to do is not to worry about the number of thoughts. You can have 1,000,000 thoughts. That's not the issue. You should try to flip and see what is this entity that is observing these thoughts.
Yes, one has to, like a child, you have to bring back, your mind and try to calm it down or focus it on what you are doing.
Again, you are talking about calming the mind. I'm not talking about calming the mind. I'm not at all talking about calming the mind.
I'm focused. If I'm saying my prayers, then I want to focus it. Not calming, but focusing on, yes.
Correct. So that is a prayer situation.
Yes.
I'm not talking about a prayer situation. You see, in a prayer situation, you focus on prayer, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. So I won't expect you to, focus on the observer in the prayer situation. But maybe, if somebody else has tried just sitting in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just to experience this, exercise. If you have not done it, maybe you can try in the next 1 or 2 weeks and come back to me. Just give me a feedback. I want to know from your own words, how do you, what kind of an experience it was? Okay.
I have tried it, and I must say that it is very difficult.
Okay.
It is very difficult, yes.
Right.
And I still continue in spite of that. But
Very good.
just to keep my mind occupied on one particular thing, I say either pratasmarami shloka,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
some such thing, so
Yeah.
that I can concentrate at least on that one thing and
Okay.
not thousand other thoughts.
Okay. Right. Right. So, does anyone else have any point to make? Any comments, or shall we move on to the next sloka? No one?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Thank you. So, 270. We'll go to 270. Lokanuvartanam
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 tyaktva
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 tyaktva dehanuvartanam.
tyaktva
tyaktva
dehantanam
dehanuvartanam
Dehanuvartanam.
Shastranuvartanam tyaktva
shastranuvartanam
शास्त्रानुवर्तनं
tyaktva
त्यक्त्वा
swadhyasa
स्वाध्यास
Swadhyasa
dhyasa
apanayam kuru.
apanayam
अपनयं
Apanayanam
कुरु.
Kuru.
So, this swadhyasapanayam kuru, you will see again coming in another 9 shlokas, starting from 277. So, from 277 until 285, I think.
Swadhyay.
Yeah, you will have swadhyasapayan, adhyasa apanayanam. It may not be swadhyasapanayam. In the 285, it says vidwan swadhyasapanayam kuru. Okay, that's also swadhyasapanayam. So 9 plus 1, this one, 10 shlokas. Exactly like, tattvamasi bhavayatmani,
Yeah.
Brahma tattvamasi bhavayatmani, we had 10 shlokas. Similarly, we'll have 10 shlokas with swadhyasapanayam kuru. So this is the first shloka, and then 277 onward, 9 more shloka. So this is a very important word. So adhyasam, I told you about adhyasam. Adhyasam is superimposition. So swadhyasam means superimposition that has happened on yourself. That is what? This is the dehatma bhava and buddhyatma bhava. What we had in the earlier shlokas. Anatmani atmamati. Anatmani atmamati is one thing, or aham mameti yo bhavaha. All that is here called adhyasam. And apanayam means reduction. Reduction or diminishing, decreasing. All that is apanayam. Swadhyasapanayam kuru means work on reducing your adhyasa, work on reducing your vasana. You can say swadhyasa is also a kind of vasana. Okay. So what is this? Lokanuvartanam. The word tyaktva means giving up, or by giving up. So by giving up. What is lokanuvartanam? Anuvartanam means to live according to. That is the meaning of anuvartanam. Vartanam means to be existing. Vartanam, the word vartanam literally means to exist. Anuvartanam means by following a certain template, by following someone. Today you have all these social media where you follow a lot of people, right? So whether you are on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, you follow thousands of people. That's also a kind of lokanuvartanam. So basically lokanuvartanam means you live according to a template that is set by the people around you, or that is set by the world around you. That is lokanuvartanam. So, I'm not sure. I'm sure, people in this group may not be that kind of an addicted, people, but there are a lot of people who are very fashion conscious. They'll always want to go with the latest trend in the, society, and they'll want to have the best brands all the time, and they'll flash all sorts of accessories, and they'll wear only branded shoes, branded clothes, and all that. That's one way of describing lokanuvartanam. Or constantly seeking approval from others, that's also lokanuvartanam. Okay, so we are all living in a society, so we have to have some kind of a coexistence with others. So to some extent, living in harmony with others is essential, but it should not become such an obsession that your entire life's agenda is set by others. That becomes lokanuvartanam. So lokanuvartanam tyaktva basically means stop obsessing about what the world is doing, and don't just blindly ape the world around you. That is lokanuvartanam tyaktva. That is the message. Then dehanuvartanam tyaktva. That is also dehanuvartanam means here the life is dictated by the demands made by the body. So this is what we have in Bhagavad Gita as Asuri Sampat. In the 16th chapter, there is a complete chapter devoted to this Asuri Sampat. So basically, the word Asura means one who is excessively focused on satisfying his sense pleasures. That is Asura. Okay, Asura doesn't mean he has some two horns and he has some extra long teeth, or he has got some very frightful look or anything. No, Asura simply means one. Asushu ramate iti asuraha. Asuhu means your sense organs. Ramate means one who enjoys or one who revels in. So anybody who is given to excessive enjoying of sense pleasures, pursuit of sense pleasures, is an asura. And so this dehanuvartanam essentially means don't be so hooked up about satisfying every demand of your body. Some people, let's say, at least in India, you have a lot of houses today where AC has become a very common thing. People cannot live without air conditioner. Especially if you go to places like Chennai or Mumbai, the place is very sultry. So AC becomes a norm, and some people cannot tolerate if the temperature is 2 degrees more than their normal comfort level. Let's say somebody is used to 22 degrees, and by mistake somebody sets the temperature at 24 degrees. They'll feel very uncomfortable. Or maybe even some people have got used to 18 degrees. So if somebody comes from outside and feels 18 is very cold, they have to suffer that 18 degrees because this person will not change it from 18 to 20 or 22. That kind of a comfort, we are all very used to, many people. So we should not be so, shall we say, addicted to keeping our body and mind in very comfort level. We have to be able to withstand some amount of roughness and toughness. That's the reason why our forefathers had this practice of vratam and tapasya and all that. Tomorrow happens to be Mahashivaratri, and a lot of people will go without sleep for the whole night. That's a tapasya.
Hello?
Even I can't hear.
Pandharpur Yatra, or Shabarimala Yatra in the south. Or people who walk up to Tirupati hill with foot and all that. So, or if you go to Tamil Nadu, there are Murugan temples or Subramanya temples where people walk 40, 50, 60, 100 kilometers barefoot. Okay, so these are all tapasyas. So going without food on one day or one night is a tapasya. Sleeping on the floor without any mattress is tapasya. So all these are tapasya, which basically inculcate in us the habit that we can put up with a good amount of discomfort. Our body should get used to a lot of discomfort, and that is the whole purpose of all these tapasya. And that is to get rid of the dehanuvartanam. So Dehanuvartanam is basically to keep your body at your control. You should not be under body's control. That is Dehanuvartanam Tyaktva. Then Shastranuvartanam Tyaktva. No, this is very important. So we say that Shastras are very important. We have to learn the Shastras and live according to Shastras. So why are we here talking about Shastranuvartanam Tyaktva? So how can you drop Shastranuvartanam? What that means is, you have to learn the Shastras and take the essential teaching and live according to the essential teaching. But there are a lot of people who pursue the Shastras as an end in itself because they want to become scholars and they want to win over other scholars in debates and establish their intellectual superiority and all that. So that is Shastranuvartanam. So when you take the Shastra studies to an extreme, and you start debating with anybody and everybody on Shastra matters, that is Shastranuvartanam. See, the Shastras are also a means to a certain end. And that, what is that end? That end is to understand our true nature and how to get out of this samsara. This Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam that Shankaracharya teaches in Bhajagovindam, that is the cosmic cycle of birth and death and rebirth. And that is the, my guru says, it's a sorry go round. We have all heard of merry-go-round, right? So we've all heard of merry-go-round, and the merry-go-round is actually merry because you know that at some point it will stop going round and round and you can get out. Okay, but imagine you got into a merry-go-round which can never be stopped and from which you can never get out. So that merry-go-round then becomes a sorry go-round. So this samsara, this Janma Marana cycle is actually a sorry go-round in which all of us are caught. And the Shastras are a means to help us get out of this samsara cycle. And instead of focusing on extracting the essential teaching and then trying to get out of samsara, if we get deeper and deeper into Shastra, that is actually an abuse of Shastra. So that Shastranuvartanam Tyaktva has to be understood in that context. So it is not to belittle Shastras, but it is to caution people who go on an intellectual trip and try to master all the Shastras. That is dangerous. Okay. So Shastranuvartanam Tyaktva Swadhyasapanayam Kuru. So by following these tips, all these are tips basically. Lokanuvartanam Tyaktva, Dehanuvartanam Tyaktva, Shastranuvartanam Tyaktva, any other Anuvartanam Tyaktva, whatever else you may have. You have to reduce all those dependencies and try to gain a certain balance, a certain middle path. And then focus on this, the Vedantic teaching, Swadhyasa Apanayam Kuru. Reduce your false identification with the body, mind, world, etc., etc. So that is the 270. Okay. So we managed to do 4 shlokas today. It's 9 o'clock. So maybe if anyone has some points to discuss, we can talk, or else we can close today's session. Any feedback? Yes, ma'am, Shvetambari ji.
Not a feedback, only a question, sir. So, what the knowledge that we gain in this life, will it be lost in the next life?
No, that is not at all the case. A very clear answer is given in the 6th chapter, and I think I did cover that part in the 6th chapter.
Yes.
If I have not covered, I'll repeat it here. In the 6th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has a specific question. It is from shloka number 38, I think. If you have Bhagavad Gita in front of you, you can open Bhagavad Gita. Shloka number 37, 38, 39. Arjuna has a question in 3 shlokas. And then 40 to 47, Bhagavan answers that question. And so, sorry?
Purvabhyasena teneva
Correct.
dhyate yavasopi.
Purvabhyasena teneva. So
Yeah.
let's say somebody is going through Vedantic teaching. He is going through Shravanam and Mananam. Okay, let's say he's been in that journey, but unfortunately he has not completed the journey. He has not finished Mananam, or he has not even finished Shravanam. He has not had the chance to come to Nididhyasanam, let's say. Okay, he is a spiritual seeker, but his spiritual journey was cut short in this Janma. So will he have to start from the scratch in his next Janma? Is the question from Arjuna. And Krishna says, no, you don't have to worry about it, because Krishna gives a name for such a person. He calls him, what does he call? Yoga Bhrashta.
Yoga Bhrashta.
Yeah. So that word Yoga Bhrashta you get in 41st shloka, second line, second half. Chuchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Bhrashto Vijayate. So that person is called Yoga Bhrashta. So that Yoga Bhrashta will continue on his spiritual journey in the next Janma. Whenever he gets the next human birth, because of his punya karma, he may end up going to some of the higher lokas, enjoy some stay there for some time, and then eventually will come back to Manushya Janma once that punyam is exhausted. And in that Manushya Janma, next Manushya Janma, this Yoga Bhrashta will continue exactly at the same point where he left off. That assurance Bhagavan Krishna gives in the 6th chapter. So you don't have to worry about losing all the knowledge. If I'm sure all of you will eventually qualify to be jnani and get out of this sorry go round. I'm sure about it. You don't have to have any worries. But I'm talking about somebody else. If somebody else is there who's destined to be a yoga bhrashta, then that person need not have any problem. He will happily continue in the next janma.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. Right. So I presume no questions for today. So let us chant our closing prayers and conclude. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Sarvesham Swastirбhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarvepi Sukhinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So like I did in the last few times, I will share the link for the recordings of the previous 24 sessions, and whoever missed any of those sessions can feel free to go back to those sessions and refresh on the basics. Okay. Namaste. We'll meet next week again on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.